So welcome to TeaTime,
Big.
everyone. It's been a little while since we've had Preston, also known as Brazil, on the show. He's back now soloing the Lupicus. You know, you can interpret that however you will. We have finally got the progression of Guild Wars 2, the brand new update.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just start and address the elephant in the room. I feel like the sentiment was like pretty negative overall in the community.
Don't think this patch was that much smaller than a regular Living World patch. The story was shorter, which I found disappointing. But apart from the story, I can survive with there being one less story instance.
Look, I'll phrase it like this. I think one of the problems that happened with this patch is people were expecting it to basically set the expectation for what a quarterly update looks like. I'm not sure if that's actually a very safe bet. I think ArenaNet completely failed to set expectations for this patch, and that was a huge mistake.
I have an Inferno take. This is like so hot that it's blue fire like Guardian. You ready?
All right, we're in.
That's why I still run like fucking Windows 10 1903 from like 2009. Yeah.
So welcome to TeaTime,
Big.
everyone. And you know, I want to open this. Bloom was just telling us about how he has actually doomed so hard he kind of came out the other side and now believes that Wing 8 will be added to the game. Feels good. Lara lost the Wing 8 copium. It just went straight
There's
over to
no
Bloom.
way.
Right? That's
There's
how it
no
is.
way.
You know, now
Yeah.
Wing 8 is confirmed.
We swapped. Yeah, I have insider information. Wing 8 is confirmed.
Do you want to see the Wing 8 reveal? Are you ready?
Okay,
Oh,
let's
no.
go.
This is what happens when ArenaNet reveals Wing 8.
Oh, there it is.
Hi, it's me, Jebro.
Yeah.
That's the Wing 8 reveal.
There you go. There is Wing 8, my friends. Enjoy. But anyway, welcome to the show, everyone. We have, of course, it is the returning gamer. It's been a little while since we've had Preston, also known as Brazil, on the show. He's back now soloing the Lupicus. You know, you can interpret that however you will. Blasting the dungeons and, of course, sometimes flying around and attacking the helicopters in the Cold War strike missions. That's pretty good. And we also have a battle for the ages. Like this. Me and Preston, we might just be standing back here doing nothing because we actually have hardcore Doomlord Bloom versus the embodiment of joy and happiness, Lara. 1v1. It's oof. You better be ready for that. It's going to be exciting stuff.
It's kind of wild. I don't know. It's wild to me that I would ever be against Lara in the like positivity debate. I never thought I'd be in this position.
There's even another extra guest on this TeaTime.
Oh.
Yeah. He also likes the patch a lot, actually. He told me.
So you brought in some extra support. I like that.
Yes.
You know, it's a bit of a
Yes.
team effort. That's good. That's good. But anyway, let's get into it. We have finally got the progression of Guild Wars 2, the brand new update. What lies beneath? It has arrived. New map, new meta events, Suwon legendaries. Materials are being drained out of the economy as well. Boom. You know, they clearly watched the TeaTime economy podcast with the Barons. You know, they're on that immediately. And I think it would be fair to say that the response to the episode was mixed, I think. To keep it as neutral as possible, to open the conversation, I would say it was a pretty mixed response from the community overall. I definitely think that there were a lot of things to praise about the episode, and some things that perhaps were not exactly what players were expecting or what players were exactly hoping for. And yeah, I just want to open up here, actually. I want to get Bloom and Lara's take on this to get things moving along, and then, you know, I'll stand back for a while, and then maybe I'll dare to contribute at some point down the line. But anyway, yeah. Who wants to go first? Who wants to get in there and get some initial impressions, summary of what the hell's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just start and address the elephant in the room. I feel like the sentiment was like pretty negative overall in the community. like straight up, the patch was just too short, and that's it. Like I don't think anyone can disagree that the patch was just way too short. I liked what was there in the patch. I really liked the story, the map, the like some of the rewards and stuff. There just wasn't enough of it, and I just like that really sours it for me. That's kind of what I'm struggling with at the moment. So I'm hoping that Lara can spread some positivity and give me some of that hope
I don't think we actually
again.
disagree that much.
Okay.
Like you said, I think it's hard to argue that it wasn't too short. I do really like the patch. I think I said earlier that I think it's a solid 7.5 out of 10. Again, I'm probably a little bit on the optimistic side here. But I think there was a lot of stuff to like there. I really like the new map. I really like where the story is going. I thought the map was really pretty. Also, it's really profitable as well. So it's kind of found its way into my rotation. I think I was kind of expecting it to be a map where I would go and explore and there would be like a tiny meta like Biora Part 1, but it's actually turned out it's kind of like Drizzlewood. It's really replayable. So it's kind of sort of exceeded my expectations in the part of the map and the part of the meta. I really, really like that stuff. Also, Suwon variants are super pretty. I do agree though. I think it's exactly the same as what you said. Like, this story, I really liked where it's going. I really liked what was there, but it was too short. That's my biggest criticism of the patch. I think there should have been at least one more instance in there. Maybe they could have like let us do some stuff in the old maps. I don't know, maybe, who knows, we go, like, it feels like, like it's been a year since the story has been here, right? It's been a year since End of Dragons. It felt like they could have done a lot of stuff like, yo, what is Canfa like now? What has happened? Maybe we go, I don't know, we go to this place and see what's going on here, and we go to this place and we see the energy crisis, blah, blah. But instead it just kind of jumps in and it was over really fast. Now, for me, that doesn't sour the patch too much. If anything, I'm really excited for it to continue. I want to see what happens next.
Me too.
Because the replayable content I actually found really good. Like I said, I really like the meta, I really like the map, I really like the Suwon stuff. There's also some other stuff, like some new achievements came in for getting like the mini Shrine Guardians, which is actually pretty chunky to get all those achievements. And they also nerfed the Jade Runestone farm, which I actually, weirdly enough, actually I like it because I've been doing like a Jade Runestone farm on my stream every day. So it's like I've got whole new content. So I've got like tons of stuff to do. I'm actually in a fantastic mood. But
I have a Mesmer exiled up there. It's just been taking rune stones every day.
You can still get one. You can still get one.
Yes, yeah.
You will remain in exile, and now you've got that. Yeah. Well, now you can exile loads of characters all over Akavold as well, I guess, to get all the rune stones.
Yeah.
I mean, oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, to add to what you're saying, I think the main thing for me is that, like, it wasn't. In isolation, it was not a bad patch. It could have been much worse. Like, there was a good map, I think. The meta is like decent, but at least the rewards are there. The map looks pretty. There's a lot of new music, and the story that we got was pretty good as well. I really loved the voice acting and everything in that whole story instance. But the pain for me comes from the fact that it's been a whole year. And like it's weird to have waited a year and got our shortest, what feels like our shortest like Living World episode in a long time. Feels bad. And I'm just wondering why that's happened, and is this the standard moving forward? Like, are they all gonna be this short? Because like that worries me a little bit.
Yeah, it's strange because I don't know, it feels like they kind of cuts corners on the story a little bit. Like, it's definitely not. I think if you look back at like season 3, season 4, I honestly don't think those were that much more meaty than this patch was. But the story in most of them was definitely longer. It feels like they just like again, like some instance just got cut out somewhere in the middle. I think that's definitely a big part of it. I don't necessarily disagree.
Yeah, it's weird to me just because. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
This is just like I'm in an interesting place with this conversation, and because it's kind of like, okay, as End of Dragons has, the cycle is at an end, and it's, I guess, begun again, because it's confusing to hear that, oh, the patch is so short, this is new, I've lost all my hope for the game. It's been a year since we had the expansion, and like that's exactly what happened after Heart of Thorns. We got nothing for a year. And so it's just kind of like the realization that, like, oh, all the old players are gone. They don't remember that. And like, I don't know, because this exact same thing has happened like 3 times where there's a year between content, and the content comes out and there's like 2 hours of it. And then like, but people are mad about it this time. I logged on and like I was like, I'm gonna watch Kroof play the story, and I saw instantly that there were like noodle eating animations, and I was like, okay, so this is where the development time went. And then I teleported into the map, died to passive damage, and I was like, okay, so there's a mechanic you have to do to run around in the map, and it's a farm map. Okay, so business as usual. I'm fine. Like I'm having a great time with it, because me, your boy, I don't have 2 hours of content to play and then nothing to do for 4 months before the next patch, because I'm just going to wait for all of the patches to be out at once, play through them back to back, see whatever they do with the maps. It'll be fine. And it makes me realize I should have just taken this approach like every time this has happened the past 12 years or whatever, because it's fine. It's like waiting for your favorite TV show to be finished and then binging it all at the same time instead of waiting for however long. So it's just, I don't know. I'm not upset about it. I think it's fine. It's puzzling that people are conflicted and angry because fucking there's nothing to do. There hasn't been anything to do in a Guild Wars patch on release since like Lake Doric is the first one that comes to mind. It was really big. Run around, kill White Mantle in the open world, put on a disguise, and now we don't have anything to do for 3 months. That's the one that I guess sticks out the most in my mind. And here's fucking HMS Divinity. What is this? But at least we have cool legendaries this time, I guess, the Suwon things. But I don't know. It's business as usual. Why are people fucking mad about it?
I don't think it's business as usual. I think that, like, for whatever reason, this patch felt way shorter. I've never felt this way about a Living World episode. Like, they've come out and I've played through the story, and I'm like, great, that was a cool patch. I've never ended it and thought to myself, man, that was like nothing. Like, that was so short. And like for a long time, I'm serious. And yeah, I just don't know what happened. This just feels way shorter than usual. I was just expecting basically what we were getting before End of Dragons, just kind of like the normal Living World season episode style thing. That's where my expectations were at, and they just like, I think they missed the mark. It just felt under that for some.
I want to bring a bit of copium in here. Actually, because this actually annoys me. It annoys me that I feel like I can't say this without everyone saying, "Wow, Teapot, this is insane copium. It's over. Doomga. I think that, and I feel like I've been saying this for years. At the end of the day, I do think ArenaNet is in a super weird, position in terms of development, right? We know that they're already making the next expansion. They basically just came off like re-adding season 1 to the game and restructuring what the hell's going on. And yes, I know they've done this like 3 times historically, as Preston, of course, correctly points out. I think one of the reasons why ArenaNet actually stopped communicating with the community is because they would always make a post that said, "Hey guys, we're restructuring our development practices so we can get the content to you faster." And it never happened. And then they posted the exact same message again like a year later, and just everyone's like, okay, yeah, we've heard that one before. But seriously, I do... Look, I'll phrase it like this. I think one of the problems that happened with this patch is people were expecting it, and reasonably so, by the way, this is not unreasonable. People were expecting it to basically set the expectation for what a quarterly update looks like. I think that would be fair to say. And I'm not sure if that's actually a very safe bet. I don't think this is what a quarterly update in the future is going to look like. I imagine they're going to be looking to do a little bit more than this for the follow-up patches to an expansion normally, but they aren't really able to deliver on that because of all the things that they've got going on at this point. Like, I'm gonna get destroyed for this. I'm gonna get eviscerated for this. But you know what? I love it. Bring it on. I think we are gonna have to wait until we actually see a full expansion cycle. That is one of these mini expansions, then into the follow-up patches to actually really see what's going on here. However, I will really say that this is a big problem that ArenaNet has had here. And we talked about this last time, which is actually why I wanted to get you back on here, Bloom, as well, kind of to talk about this in retrospect now after the fact. ArenaNet, okay, look, don't worry, Doomers, I've got you. I think ArenaNet completely failed to set expectations for this patch. And that was a huge mistake, I think, especially now. Like, if the patch had dropped and it was crazy, it was like, oh, this is the sickest thing ever, this is awesome, I love it. Okay, fine, I'll let you off. I'll let you off not doing some community management. I'll let you off this one time. But because the patch was mixed, right, a mixed response, and not an overwhelmingly positive one, to be honest, this kind of situation could have been a little bit avoided, right? If they had managed the expectations of the player base a little bit better, or controlled the narrative. Because you know what? Don't worry, Lara, I got you. Okay, it's a 2v2 now. Okay, there are actually some really cool things with this patch, right? And they're not massive things, but they are cool. I think the Suwon Legendary is a really nice thing to add. I think the Blackline Requisition stuff is really cool. Updating the Blackline Statuettes is definitely fun. The new map is actually really, really nice. It's a shame about the meta event. Unlucky. Watch out for that one. A little bit unfortunate. They added ritualist stats, right, of course, to stat selectable gear, which in my opinion is a huge quality of life upgrade that actually is pretty impactful actually to a lot of players who want to try out some different builds. All that kind of stuff. There was one more thing, but no.
The Harbinger hat and the Oni mask.
Oh, yeah, that actually is worth noting, actually. I think they did a good job of trying to add a good chunk of playable rewards to this patch, which I was actually a little bit impressed by. Some pretty cool skins there, which is actually really, really cool, I think. Alongside reward tracks for PvP and World vs. World. And the World vs. World thing. They actually continued to iterate on the World vs. World reward update as well. In addition to those additional reward tracks, they played around with some of the numbers on the reward restructuring, added additional weekly achievements. That weekly is honestly super juicy. So, look, I'm not going to say that this patch was not a little disappointing to me. It absolutely was, particularly on the meta event front. I was really hoping for an epic spectacle, like in the deep. That would have been really, really nice. But I do think that there was some pretty cool things that did come with this patch in terms of like the feature set and some overall improvements to the game that I don't think should be ignored. I don't think that should be ignored whatsoever. But again, I do really think that there has to be some criticism of ArenaNet here when it comes to managing the expectations of the player base.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna like loop back real quick before we like move on. About the point on like whether or not this is actually what quarterly updates are going to be like. I think you're right in that I feel like there's definitely some growing pains in that End of Dragons to me was not designed to have this sort of patch after it, seeing as that was like a full expansion and not that sort of half expansion they were talking about. So yeah, it's difficult to say whether or not this is actually going to be the scope of content moving forward. But once again, I feel like I'm just totally in the dark and I have no idea. Like, we're just kind of speculating, which I would really love ArenaNet to like just clarify and just really state what their plans are for quarterly updates. Whether this one was a one-off or whether this is the stand going forward is essentially all the info that I need, really.
Well, it's a shame Nike's not here because he could tell us all about case law. Because there's this thing in the legal system where when there were previous rulings on a particular thing, it sets a precedence moving forward. And I think all of the precedents that we have set and the evidence that we need, that this is just going to be what the patches are like. The quarterly updates.
Well, that's what I mean.
It's happened 1,000 times. Well, no, I know they could set it, but I think we already have enough to tell us that, yeah, all of the quarterly updates are going to add a couple of skins. My guess is that there's going to be another half to this map, and then maybe like another small map with 2 halves that they add, and it's going to be a meta that you run around and farm and you move to the next meta. There's going to be a new emoji that the characters do at the start of the story, and an hour and a half to 2.5 hours of story to do based on how much DPS your character can do. And I think that's fine, because this is how things have always been, and if you like the game, you're still going to play. If you don't like the game, you're not going to play. And there's going to be stuff to do. I do dungeons. Dungeons are the most dead, antiquated content in the entire game at this point. And I do dungeons every night after work, have a good time, and then I log on the next day and do dungeons, and it's fine. I enjoy playing the game, and have friends that play the game, do the same stuff. And if you play the game to the point where like your life is in shambles, that there's only 2 hours of content to do for the next 3 months, you have to reevaluate things and examine your mental health, because maybe there are better things that you could be doing with your time, and this is a good time to investigate that. You have you've done your 2 hours of content, and now you have 3 months to figure out, what your priorities are, and if you want to play the game, and if the world is actually ending, or if Guild Wars 2 is going to be fine like it has been for 10, 11 years.
I want to bring Lara in because she's been wanting to get in for a while, but I just want to quickly point out that in the chat, look at this. We actually have I just want to put this out right next to each other. We have W take, and then immediately afterwards L take.
Yeah,
like it's actually one. So they're actually consecutive messages. So a little bit divisive here, but yeah, Lara, get in here. Let's go.
Here's the thing for me. I actually don't think this patch was that much smaller than a regular Living World patch. The story was shorter, which I found disappointing. But apart from the story, I can survive with there being one less story instance. Again, I want more story though. I want to like learn all about what's going on Canva. I want to get all the details and stuff. But apart from that, like sometimes the Living World updates, they would have a mastery or something, but it would be like a mastery that you literally don't care about. Usually it's kind of a useless mastery. I don't really mind that that's not there. So honestly, here's the thing. I would think that this patch, I would be a lot more worried if I didn't know that a fractal with a challenge mode was coming within the next 4 months, right? They said like first half of the year. That's another 4 months. So to me, it really feels like a sort of standard Living World season patch with a meta that I actually kind of like. And there's some cool stuff in there. And the story is shorter, and I find that disappointing. But for me, that's not quite yet a reason to go full doomer, if that makes sense, right? I'm just like, oh well, that's disappointing. Let's hope next time the story will be a little bit longer. But again, like, I would be right now. I would be sort of scared if I didn't know about any like instance content coming, right? If it was like, oh, there's gonna be strikes the next mini expect, but we don't know when the next mini expect is coming. Just the fact that we know that a fractal with a challenge mode is coming, I always like play those to death. Basically, makes me be like, oh yeah, I guess it's a standard Living World episode, slightly shorter story, no instance content, which is sad. There's no strike or whatever, but there's a fractal CM coming. Oh, I'm fine. Yes. I'm good. For me, that sort of got me satisfied. Honestly, I don't, like I said, I don't think it's that much more lightweight than a regular Living World patch.
Okay.
I agree kind of, but go on, Preston. Yeah.
I have an Inferno take. This is like so hot that it's blue fire like Guardian. You ready? I think this patch and all of the patches going forward would be better with 0 seconds of story time.
Zero seconds.
2 hours.
No! 0 seconds.
The characters are terrible. they're all safe from any harm. We saw this happen after Bram got corrupted by Primordius, and he was perfectly fine. And fucking Bangar Ryland is turned into ice, and they're still in a cage, just like making jokes at you. Like, the fucking characters and shit don't matter. That's just useless fan service. Like, fucking, if you gave me. If you said you can have the Harbinger hat skin or story, I would have said just give me a transmutation stone. Like, I'll take that over the story. Like, and if they just developed like more shit to do in the map, or made the map a little bit bigger, and like maybe like made two bigger bosses instead of spending any time on the story at all, I think that would have been a better solution, because people wouldn't have to complain about the story. The story is, already, it's not great. So like people like to run around and farm. That's what they do anyways. So just give them more of that. The world would be fine. It would be perfect.
Hang on a minute though. I've got to slightly debate this, because isn't that kind of what we got? Like, one, it's worth noting the map is actually really good for farming. It's not even on a timer. You can infinitely farm the map forever.
Yes.
The map has a bunch of, it's got collectibles. I wouldn't say it has a lot of exploration on it as such, but it has like collections to do. And I think, it would have been nice to have, I think it's really hard to do both, right? ArenaNet, they're in a bit of a tough spot. They can either make a map that's got a lot of replayability to it, or they can put their resource into that, or they can make it explorable. But if you make it explorable, then everyone complains that it's not replayable. If it's really replayable, then people are going to complain that you can't explore, right, to an extent, right? Like, so it's like, it's very difficult. I think the ArenaNet's best bet is to kind of throw in different types of maps for different patches and so on, to kind of have a little bit of variety in there. But I think in a lot of senses, didn't we kind of get this? It's pretty light on the story, and they put a lot of like rewards and replayability and farming into the map.
Sure.
Like,
yeah, that's the problem. That's exactly the problem. There should have just been zero story. They should have said that Timey is off using her IQ points to solve a problem, and Bram is pouting about something. They'll be back in the next patch. And if they said that, and there was zero story, I really think that there would be no drama. I think that Bloom wouldn't be contemplating like moving to the United States, and that Lara would be fine. Well, I guess I don't know if
I'm gonna type L take in the chat
yeah,
right now.
Everyone type L take.
Yeah.
It's if there was just zero story, it would have been fine. But the fact that there's basically zero story is the problem.
The biggest issue with Guild Wars 2 story, I think, is just that there's not enough bandwidth. Like, there's only so many instances, everything is voice, so they can't really spend that much time developing characters, setting stuff up. Everything just kind of feels like it goes really fast. And I think that was sort of the big thing about Dispatch. It felt like Dispatch was like the ultimate example of Guild Wars 2 story just going too fast. Just like you go there, bam, there's Emmy, bam, you fight, done. That's kind of what it felt like. I will say though, again, I was disappointed in how short the story was. I do really like the direction it's going in. That makes me very happy to see where they're going. I was totally right. I totally called it, by the way. But apart from that, I think that Dispatch, and chat might eviscerate me for this, but I think Dispatch is more replayable than most Living World updates. I think in the end, I'm gonna get more hours out of Dispatch. Maybe not more than, Dragonfall or Drizzlewood. Those are really repeatable maps. But, if you go and look, people always talk about Season 3 being, like, amazing. Season 3 was kind of awesome, but, like, Ember Bay or something, I really like that map. I just went there. I did a couple events. I got my achievements. I did the story. The story was much longer, which was nice. But then I was done. Right? There wasn't really much reason to go back to Ember Bay. Like, maybe go for some achievements, maybe go for war eventually. I think in that sense, this might actually be kind of smart. Maybe have less story, but honestly, they should just have more story. But at least it's the kind of content that is replayable long term. It's something that you can go and do every single day. Like we talked about, the meta is actually very profitable. Have any of you seen the fishing at the end? There's like special fishing nodes at the end, which have a ridiculously high drop rate for legendary fish. So
yeah,
you can just get like loads of gold doing this meta.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, for me, maybe it's just that, for farming metas is like just not good enough content for me anymore. Like
That's
there's
fair.
so
Okay,
many
hang on,
gold
hang
farms,
on.
so many ways to get. Okay, go on. Go on.
Okay, hang on. I've got an anti-Doom here because
Okay.
let me tell you the story of me playing through this map. I was actually super excited because I saw, whoa, this map is way bigger than I thought. It's got layers. It's got a huge amount of detail. The meta event is cool. We're pushing through. We have this bizarre, like, kind of gas mask mechanic that's doesn't seem to really do anything, but it's kind of annoying, I guess, going on there. I was actually really excited for the final boss, right? The room is insane. You've got these 3 platforms. You come around the corner, you see the Leviathans bursting out. They got laid. I was like, oh my God. This is going to be it. This is going to be so big. You know, they've been working on this for ages, you know, like a good couple of months on this now. They're going to drop the sickest boss fight ever. It's going to be so huge. Oh my God. It's 3 or 4 health bars with a boss that does nothing, right? And like some AoE spawn. I don't think you would be saying farming metas isn't good enough for me if that boss had absolutely blown everyone away, right? I do think, I really do think the meta event is actually key to this. I think a lot of, you know what, I'm going to go even further. I think a lot of the complaints are actually down to the meta event not delivering a spectacle. And to be clear, I do not mean difficulty. I do not think you have to have difficult meta events. Personally, I like them. Obviously, you guys know me. But I don't think you need that. It needs to impress you. It needs to look cool. It needs to be badass. And I think they had a lot of potential there, right? Come on. They even called the zone the Deep, right? Everyone's getting hyped. Everyone loves factions. We want to see Kanakta, and maybe that's coming next time. Maybe it is, right? I think it's actually quite possibly, right? Like either in the story or within, you know, within the open world, right? That's coming. But I really think that if the meta event had blown people away and been an awesome, immersive, interactive experience, I think that a lot of the complaints about just the map and perhaps even the episode in general would have been somewhat nullified because people would have been amazed by what Guild Wars 2 does best, right? Because ultimately, when I think about Guild Wars 2, I do think about story because obviously it's a story-driven game. But in my opinion, what Guild Wars 2 does execute really, really well that I think can be a massive selling point and really engages players is open world meta events. Right, that is, if you think about it, that's the bread and butter of the game. That is the backbone of Guild Wars 2, is meta events, right? It's bosses, world bosses, big open world PvE bosses. And this patch, it teased you, it excited you, and then it let you down. Okay, I think it just crumbled. It was doing so well. I love the pre-event. I think the pre-event is really cool. I think the map is awesome from a visual and thematic perspective. I was getting excited. Right? You know, the Oni came back as well. I was like, oh my God, they're doing it. They're doing the Guild Wars 1 thing. You know, they've broken, you know, broke glass in case of emergency. Oni have now returned. And then we do get blue balled. That's right. You know, that's what happened. We got memed at the end. World bosses, very important.
I think the thing about the world boss is, you're right, there's not that much spectacle. For me personally, I sort of felt spectacle, but that's because, you know, I'm like a Guild Wars 1 nerd. I was like, holy shit, we're fighting Oni on this thing, and they're transforming, and they're slowly becoming more demonic. I thought it was super cool, but I think if you're not as much of a factions lore nerd who's like it was like the nostalgia that made it a spectacle to me. It was just like, wow, it's Oni. But I think if you don't feel that nostalgia as much, I 100% agree. There's not much spectacle. I also think it's too long. It just feels like it's a big sort of like health sponge, you know? It just kind of keeps going. Yeah. I think I see what they were going for though, because it almost
I love the
like
idea.
Sort of, sorry, what?
I love the idea.
Oh yeah.
I love the idea of like this multi-phase thing, but it just doesn't deliver for me. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
The thing with I feel like purely looking at the fight itself, I feel like they almost tried to make a strike. Because there are actually mechanics on this fight. There's like a bomb you drop where someone gets it and they have to run out. There's like these AoE patterns and stuff. There's like the enemies coming in and you have to CC them so they don't reach the boss in the center. I see what they were going for, but I think that in sort of the context of a massive Zerg, it just kind of fell flat. Because you can't make these mechanics too punishing, right? Otherwise, it's going to be Dragon's End, a community disaster 2.0. So you've got all these mechanics, which I think on paper are actually pretty cool. Again, with the CC, the thing that are coming in, AoE patterns, there's a bomb you have to take out. But they just made it like they just don't do very much. So most people, they just zerk it down, ignore 90% of the mechanics. I feel like most people don't even realize that those mechanics exist. So yeah, I honestly genuinely see what they were trying to do with this. You know, cool Oni, transforms, have cool mechanics, but it just didn't work that well in an open world setting. I genuinely believe that if you take this fight and you turn it into a strike mission, it would be about the same as the first couple like easy Icewood Saga strike missions. I think it might have worked better in that context. You know, and then you can actually make the mechanics punishable and you actually have to care about them, but yeah. I see what everyone means. I will say though, if this meta does get expanded, which it most likely will, right? They've said that the playable space in the map will be expanded in the next patch. I could see it being a decent boss in the middle. You know, decent boss in the middle of the meta, and then you have the really cool epic boss at the end. But that doesn't really help very much right now, does it? It doesn't help very much right now.
I do have to complain about that a little bit as well. And I think that Arena need to be a little bit careful about this. This is more of a, this is just a bit of a warning, I guess, or a caution, or something to be aware of, I suppose. I don't, if it's going to be like that, we're going to, oh yeah, look, the first patch, you know, that's not that exciting, but the second patch, that's where shit goes down. I feel like this is a really bad strategy, right? Like in terms of like marketing your game. You can't do that. You can't say, oh yeah, this is the warm-up, guys. Like, oh yeah, wait 3 months, then it pops off. No, you can't do that. It's got to start out strong, right? You've got to, you know, you've got to have good consistency throughout your season. Well, I hope that doesn't become a pattern in the future.
I mean, they haven't even said that. That's just me filling that in with my eternal optimism, you know?
Yeah.
Again, though, I see what they were going for. I genuinely think that if you take this, reduce the health bar, have a cool boss at the end that is actually a big spectacle, I think this will be a fantastic map long term. But I understand. Also, like, did anyone else notice that the whole meta feels a bit rushed? That's just the theme of this patch, right? Like, the story feels a bit rushed, but the whole meta also, you don't really stick around. There's all these defense events going on. Everyone just ignores them. Everyone just runs and captures. I think right now that feels kind of bad because it goes really fast. Again, I think long term, if this meta does get more stages, then it will make sense and we'll be like, yeah, it totally made sense that the first half is a little bit fast. But right now, yeah, I see what you mean. I get it.
I wasn't a fan of fighting the big void blobs either as bosses.
Oh yeah,
kind of weird.
Yeah, I was like, what is this? Give me a boss with some like real mechanics going on. I don't want to hit a blob for 20 minutes.
Yeah, it is weird. And I definitely agree with you there, Lara. The map is a very strange hybrid. It's like a hybrid of Dragonstand and Drizzlewood Coast in some sense. You have this progression element pushing through, and you also have the 2 lanes going on at the same time. But you've also got a zillion like little other mini events happening simultaneously with loads of... It's a strange map, actually. It is a strange map. It's almost... It wants you to really do the meta, but also it wants you to kind of, you know, hunt down all these different mobs that are everywhere to find the little chests, right? And explore around a little bit. But then you've also got the Dragonfall section at the end. So, you know, before the map closes, you have to like run around and kill the different champions and get the chest there as well. There's a lot going on, right? It's a lot of different ideas kind of smushed into one map, which it does make it feel a little bit off, right? With the way that it plays out, right? It's a bit strange.
Bloodstone Finn. Anyone remember that?
The Jade Armor, the Veil Guardian, the Unbound Guardian.
Yeah, there's Veil Guardian at the end, which it really could have used something like that. Like, oh shit, here's the fucking Bone Skinner. What are you doing in this map? What, you came to farm all the fucking pugs all the way from Icebrood Saga? Crazy. That would have been like a wow. But yeah, Bloodstone Finn came after everyone was pissed off that the story was gated behind raids. And so they're like, well, you can have a raid boss in the open world. And then they added Slothazor and Ember Bay later too. But Bloodstone Finn was like, here's a bunch of little things to explore. You can go mine all the nodes. There are a bunch of mini events. And then if you want to just farm, you can farm the Jade Constructs for however long that went on and then do the last boss. And it was an interesting hybrid build of all sorts of different mechanics. And I guess this map sounds like it's that too. It's just missing, like the big, whoa. Like maybe like Master Togo came back again as a uncorrupted corrupted. I don't fucking know, but give it a big
The
pop.
afflicted get back into the mix.
Yeah.
They crawl out the ground. And boom, Shiro's also back as well. They're going to have to escalate in the next patch to win us over.
Add all of the Guild Wars 1 bosses
all of them,
and characters back.
Undead's Prince Rurik.
Ooh.
Hell yeah.
Undead Zozia.
No. No. I wonder if originally the meta was supposed to like make you defend each area a bit. Like, you know, like you capture it and then you defend it a bit, you do some of the events. Because it's super dense. There's stuff going on like everywhere. But I wonder if they went like, oh, but then once the second half is here, it's gonna be really long. It's gonna be like Drizzlewoods. Like I think Drizzlewoods, if you do south and north, it's a bit too long for most people. I wonder if that was originally the plan, and then they went like, oh gosh, but it will be too long once the second half is here. Let's just make everything go super fast.
Yeah, I hope they never design metas to be like, here's half the meta and here's the other half in the next patch. I'm not a fan of that, and I hope they don't continue. Like, I don't know if that's what their thought process was for this patch even. Like, we don't really know what the second patch is going to bring. But I hope that that's not how they design metas. I really would not like a map to have basically half a meta and then it continues like in the next one. I'm not a huge fan of that sort of design. I don't know.
They've done that for a while,
if
though,
that's
haven't
it
they?
though.
Have they? I feel like
That started with Bajora Marches, because they added the first part and then they added like Bone Scare, not Jakar. And then that's when everyone met Sneb, and we were introduced to Sneb through Jakar and Goon Squad. And then they added Drizzlewood came after that. They just added metas and like halves, or like, here's part 1 of the meta, here's part 2. And it's not a new concept. What's what?
I'm wondering what the verdict on that is. Whether people enjoy the fact that they're sort of like a big meta split in half, or you know, for me, I don't know. I think it's a fun factor. Like Drizzlewood Part 1 feels like a more complete meta than this one does to me. Yeah.
Yeah, this feels like a half, right? A half, and it's going to be continued.
It feels literally half.
Well,
yeah.
I think it depends how it was done, because Drizzlewood, I'm not going to lie, like, you know, Drizzlewood is long, right? You know, if you do the entire map, like, oh my god, right? You know, it's pretty crazy. I think that's not super popular, right? With this, because they're so interlinked together. I think people wish you could just do one of them. Whereas the Biora one, they're separate in a way. Like, you have one meta, then the other one is not connected to the other one. So I think that's a little bit. I think that type of approach is actually pretty good, where things are a little bit more, you know, decoupled in that regard. But yeah, I think that we could certainly see similar things to this. I'm not. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see like how the meta event actually works. Like, if it will just simply be a straight up follow on, right? Like, much more akin to Drizzlewood, right? I mean, this actually was talked about, I believe, in a article, like a game review article online, that said the second half of the meta event is going to be basically about us escaping, right, from the delves, right? Like, basically, you know, we've got in, we did some battling, and we have to escape. So I think that tends to suggest it's going to be linked. So it will be a second half to it, and we have to get back up to the surface, right, after we've been in there for a long time, into the delves.
Honestly,
we've been in here for 3 months. Get us out.
Yeah.
I think it's a good strategy long term. Okay, again, maybe I'm too optimistic, but like, again, if you make it too long, you might end up with Drizzlewood North and South, where it becomes a bit too long. I think this might lead to this meta being really epic once both halves are in. Genuinely. I genuinely think that it might be like a slightly snappier Drizzlewood, really cool, epic Kanak boss, have a semi-cool boss in the middle, which probably should have less health. But again, just right now, it's not as fun, is it? Like, when you've only got the first half.
Right now,
that's the big downside.
I think when the second episode is in and the map is complete, I think those 2 episodes combined will feel like a real proper living world episode. I'm just worried about the fact that there is a 3-month gap between them, and then that's like all we get until the next sort of mini expansion, you know. And
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to. I want to focus in on something that was said a little while ago in the conversation. You know, Lara was talking about how the meta is somewhat comparable to a strike mission, and I'm super curious how you guys think that a patch would be received, a similar patch to this. Like, let's imagine it's a similar patch to this, but attached to it is a strike mission or a fractal. Like, how much does that change the perception if it also comes with that piece of instance content as well? Like, is that a big deal or is that not a big deal? What do we actually think?
Yeah,
What do we
it's a
think?
huge deal.
Yeah, massive for me. I like, because as I said, like grinding like a meta for gold just isn't my thing anymore. I just like am not a fan of that. But if there is an instant strike version, you can bet that strike's going to be a bit more like mechanically engaging, a lot more fun to play, and that's what I want as part of my like to incorporate in my weekly loop, not like farming gold on a sort of Zerg rush, you know?
It's better because there's more content, but there's also the good kind of drama where it's people who are, and it's almost like the drama where both people, like both sides, are in a way correct, because you have the people saying, I shouldn't have to organize my subgroups and boons. I should just be able to go in and just beat the content. It's illegal to make me want to play builds that are meta. I should just be able to walk in and press W and swing my sword, and I get the rewards for it. And then you have people on the other side that say, by the way, you only have 4 runes? Shut up and do DPS. And you've got the people who are like, I've been playing Guild Wars 2 since 2001, and my DPS is higher than you. Get off my fucking DPS meter. And they fight, but they're fighting about who's more right about the content and who has the right to do it. And you have people reading on Reddit like, oh shit, there's a strike mission. Ooh, maybe I could do that. Maybe I want to raid. Maybe I want to do strikes. Let me go find a guild. I want to do strikes, but I don't know how to. Maybe I should join Skane Gang or Hardstuck, and they'll teach me how to do strike missions. And then you have people saying, you know what? Fuck it. This game is toxic. They added in-game content. I don't want to do that. I quit. And so we get the bad apples out of the way. People are fighting. People are fighting about how there is content, not how there isn't content.
Wow, it's the good kind of argument.
See what I'm saying here?
Drama.
It's the good kind of drama. There's so much content, we don't know what to do. So let's just argue about it, rather than the almost universal consensus being there's no content, the game is doomed, and all of these people somehow not realizing that that's been the state of Guild Wars 2 since like 2013.
Here's the thing, I don't want it to be the state of Guild Wars 2, and I really thought that ArenaNet, I got the vibe that they had found their footing with End of Dragons, and then the Living World re-releases were really well done. Even though they were like re-releases, I was quite entertained by them. And
did you ever play Chronomancer?
I've never played Chronomancer.
They reworked Chronomancer 8 times.
Yeah.
That's a good analogy for the company. I'll go ahead and spoil it. People are mad about this, so they've already determined that this approach to content doesn't work. So after the next expansion, they're going to completely revise how they do content going forward. And there's going to be something between the next expansion and that one, because they add new currency, they do this, they add a bunch of stuff, and then they delete it and take it out. Fucking what happened to Stronghold? What happened to the Desert Borderlands? All this, like, this has been going on for a long time. So, like, it's just going to continue to change. They're going to find ways to undo all the stuff that they did and redo it worse, but also better. And so just put on your seatbelt and buckle up and watch the other people have a bad time while you yourself are just like, it's fine. It's okay.
Okay, right.
They haven't.
They haven't
reworked Living World that many times. You're right. There's definitely things they've reworked a million times. But like the Living World format, ever since season 3, it's mostly been the same, right?
More or less.
Maybe
yeah.
that's why-
I think it was
Yeah.
a good time to rework it. Like
At
I
the
think Living
end.
World was going
Yeah.
on for a bit too long.
Maybe that's why it hurts so much, because Living World did feel like one of the consistent things in Guild Wars 2 that I
Right.
knew what to expect with the next Living World episode, and now I don't, and it's scary.
I
Yeah.
miss when Living World was South Sun Cove and you missed the weekend to do it and you
And you
could
can't
never
get
do
it. Yeah,
again.
it's over. It's gone.
It's over.
You can't play it. Yeah. Hey,
That was my Living World.
This is definitely a topic that I want to bring up here. Actually, like we've kind of alluded to this a few times on the show so far, and I'll actually open this with a few interesting statements, because you know what, in our kind of communities, you know, your Twitch communities, your YouTube communities, I would say, you know, let's be honest here, there's been quite a lot of negativity recently. But you know what? I am actually going to say something that is going to be heresy. I'm gonna get the L take coming in here. Actually, I would actually say that the majority of the player base probably actually really enjoyed the patch. They probably really enjoyed the story. They were probably looking for a bit more story, right? I think, you know, story players were like, oh, you know, I was hoping for a bit more. They probably really enjoyed the map and exploring that and just getting that update. You know, going after maybe a legendary weapon, maybe just getting the collections right, like doing the achievements, whatever. I think that's the case. Now, here's the thing. There's obviously the more kind of, you know, sweaty players who are putting a lot of hours, veteran players. This is where a lot of the negativity is coming from, right? And that's to be expected, right? I would say that as a veteran player, this patch is definitely a little light for, you know, if you're within that demographic. But the reason I kind of lined that up was because I think ArenaNet really need to do a better job of controlling the narrative around the game and managing the community and making sure that the player base who are engaged with the news, like with, you know, the forward-facing community, so the subreddit, you know, Twitch, YouTube, especially seeing as they brought in Twitch drops, by the way, guys, okay, right? Seriously, day one, we had, what, 20,000 people watching the game, and the entire chat was full of doom. Right? Like, what does that look like to a new player? And I had to battle them. Seriously, you think I enjoy this, guys? I had to like wrestle with like doomers for like 2 days straight. It was horrible. Right. But ArenaNet need to set their expectations, because before this patch came out, Bloom and Lowry, who are multi-MMO players, one of the big things that they were bringing up on the TeaTime was, I don't know what the hell's going on. Right? What is this patch? What is it? And I also said, and I've said this for a while, is that this patch is going to set the tone and set the expectation for what's coming in the future. And oh no, yeah, it did. But the reason is because ArenaNet didn't even try. They could have said, hey guys, these patches, they're going to be a little bit smaller, right, before the next mini expansion. Then we're going to have our full content cycle going. I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of like sacred cow rule of marketing that you're not allowed to say that. Okay, you can't say, oh, it's not going to be that massive. I don't know. Maybe you have to say it in a different way. But they could have said something like that. They could have said, this is what's going to be happening within the patch, right? And they could have probably curbed a lot of this negativity, because I think a big part of the negativity does come from the clash between what players were hoping for and what players actually got. And just to give you some idea of the scope of this, guys, I had multiple people coming in saying, not even understanding what it was. They were like, where are the new features? This is the new expansion, right? People were saying stuff like, where's the new strike mission? Where's the new fractal? And yes, I know people could just read the blog post and it's there. But listen, you can't rely on people to read like one line in your blog post. It's just not going to happen, right? There's just no way. And it wasn't just one or two people. A lot of people had no idea what the hell was going on. People did not know what to expect. They thought there was going to be a strike mission. They thought there's going to be like 1 million strikes a year. Hell, some people even thought that Wing 8 was coming, right? Okay, like that's the level of disconnection that the player base has with their expectations compared to the reality of what's actually going to happen. And ultimately, that environment breeds doomers, right? Which is no fun for anyone, including me, by the way, when that happens. I think it's a super bad look for the game. It makes everyone miserable. It's a horrible look from people looking in on the game, which does directly affect ArenaNet, by the way, because I hate to say it, yes, it's a vocal minority of people who do a lot of the dooming, but here's the thing, right? the people who speak up are more likely to be veterans and are they're more likely to be slightly doomery. And that sets the narrative for the game. If ArenaNet want that to change, which in my opinion, they definitely do, because, you know, if an outside player's looking, everyone's like dooming and miserable, then they're going to, whoa, I'm not going anywhere near this game, right? If they want to change that, they should probably do some community management. All right, that's it. Rant over. Yeah, someone can try and make sense of that.
I was going to say, I agree. Like what I mentioned in the video is that like marketing to me isn't just about building up hype for the release, but it's also about, as you said, like managing expectations and having people understand what they're getting into with the update or whatever. And they tried nothing and nothing worked. So like now we're in this position where you know, everyone's expectations were not even sky high. I think everyone's expectations were pretty like middle of the road. We all thought we were just going to get what we've usually gotten, but it just under-delivered on that. And now I am a bit worried about those other features that they promised, like the combat, whatever they said, the combat mechanics or whatever, the combat features and masteries and that sort of thing. I don't know that stuff is even gonna be like, I don't know how regular that stuff's gonna be implemented in the game. I don't even know when that would be coming, if this is the kind of scope that we can expect for the next like year at least, you know?
Here's my thing. I roughly agree with this rant.
Nice.
I don't agree that I think it's a lighter patch. You know, them coming out and being like, yo, this patch is gonna be lighter on content. I actually think it's pretty average living worlds. Again, the story was shorter though. That was shorter. But apart from that, I think it was a pretty average living worlds release. I think, however, that basically there were a lot of different circumstances which made the doom stronger and stronger and stronger. You know, I feel like it's just like the perfect like things went wrong. Like the thing here is that there was this big blog post which was really hype about the mini expansions and all that sort of stuff, and then everyone got really hyped, and then like we basically got a roughly average living world release that's a little bit on the small side in the story department, right? So I think also the fact that there was not much teasing going on, there wasn't a trailer before, I was just a bit confused, and people managed to get these expectations way high up in their head, and then we just basically got a small living worlds release. But I genuinely think that if you go and compare this to like Bloodstone Fen or something like that, or like if you compare this to Ember Base, Siren's Landing, the story was definitely less, which is not great. I think if there was just one more instance, that would have been used. But apart from that, I think maybe people are looking back at living worlds with like slightly rose-colored glasses.
I mean,
But I really don't think Living Story added that much content usually either. Again, the story was longer, but apart from that, you know, sometimes there'd be like a legendary. This time we got like a full set of legendaries. Someone in the chat just wrote the meta is much simpler. Most Living World maps didn't even have a meta. There is no meta on Ember Bay or Siren's Landing. There's some cool events, but there's not even like a replayable thing. The thing though, is that for me, I think a huge saving grace, I already said this earlier, but a huge saving grace for me is the fact that I know a Fractal CM is coming, right? If there was absolutely no sign of like instance content coming on the way, I'd be like, oh yeah, shit. Like sometimes Living Worlds would come with something like that. The fact that we know this Fractal is coming within the next for a couple months, and it's gonna have a CM, for me makes it like, oh yeah, this just feels like Living Worlds. The story is short, sad that there's no instance content, but that'll be here soon. I'm like, yeah, feels like run-of-the-mill Living World to me. There's not that much that I'm missing, to be quite honest.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of people feel the way I do, where it has literally been a year since End of Dragons. We've been getting Living World Season 1 stuff throughout the year.
Yeah.
And that's great and all, but I think a lot of people were like, well, if they're working on Living World Season 1 for this entire year, they must be working on something huge to come after. The next Living World episode must be massive. And I'm not sure where the dev time must have been going, because this doesn't feel like what I'd expect after a year of, like, you know, bringing back kind of reprised content. I don't know where where the dev time went. It just feels like very little for a whole year, and I wonder if that's like because their development time is sort of backloaded and it's all going into the next mini expansion or something. But if that is the case, I'd really like to know.
I think that's very, very likely. Yeah. I mean, again, they haven't communicated it, which is kind of the crux of the issue, right? But yeah, I think that is 100% what's going on. You know, they're trying to move into this thing where, you know, Brazil just talks about these 1-year content droughts before an expansion and after an expansion. They're trying to get rid of that. So this next expansion is like probably pretty far in development at this point. But that does mean that the stuff in between probably can't be quite as meaty. Honestly, I am okay with like one less story instance, and honestly, I'm also okay with a meta being not having as much spectacle at the end, if that means that I won't have to wait an entire year for the next expansion. Of course I want both, okay? Of course we all want both. But I think, again, that, you know, looking back at Living World, I really don't think it was that much smaller. Everyone that's like, oh, Living World was amazing. I think a lot of people are forgetting that they were also on the subreddits going like, Living World sucks. I did this story and there's nothing else. And now they're all like going like, Living World was amazing.
Oh yeah.
I
think that's
for a lot of
definitely
people,
a thing.
I think for a lot of people, it just feels like we've done the waiting already. Like that 1 year was season 1, and this was the year where it was like coming back, and it just didn't feel that way to me. You know?
Yeah, I think Lara's 100% correct here, actually, in both ways. I think, well, actually, and what you just brought up there, Bloom, too, actually, that combining those is the ultimate W take, guys. Okay, is that's I'm a Zoomer. I know the lingo these days, guys. But yeah, I think the year gap meant that pretty much Ada were a little bit doomed regardless, I think, to be honest. Like, if you have like a 1 year gap between releasing quote unquote new content, yeah, obviously season 1, yes. Yeah. And some of the quality of it, yeah. Okay, obviously. But yeah, realistically, it was probably going to be a little bit rocky regardless. And yeah, look, do you guys not remember the Living 4 Doom when they dropped Corner as a map? Do you guys not remember that? Like, that, you know, I could have, it was like the end was nigh, right? I'm pretty sure people thought, this is it. It's over. This map is so bad and so scuffed that it's over, right? And it's funny how like a few negative things can actually completely obliterate your overall perspective on a patch. Because that patch, of course, brought the roller beetle, which is actually kind of a really cool thing. They got added to the game there as well. Right? Like, it's like a few things. It's made everyone go like full Doom. But yeah, like, you guys got to remember, like the 2019 era was like Omega Doom. It was a hyper Doom era for Guild Wars 2. So I don't think Living World, especially season 4, I think definitely was sometimes like very, very light on the amount of content that it was releasing. But it had a lot of story, to be fair. Like, the story was a bit meatier, right? So there is that.
I have a question. So I don't anticipate we'll get an expansion for another year. I think that's what I got from the blog post. But also I read it and then I kind of forgot because, you know, other stuff's going on. But is it 2 years between expansions, or is it just 1 year twice?
Entirely told us exactly what way. I'm not sure anymore, but they haven't told us exactly what the cycle is. Honestly, I think their plan, their goal might be 1 per year. I think it might end up being more like one every 1.5.
1 year twice.
Yeah. Well, I want to step in it. I want to step in because I want to bring it back to the original point here.
Yeah.
I understand that they probably can't give us too many specifics right now. But look, I'm a consumer. That means I get to point out the problems. I don't have to fix them. That's ArenaNet's problem. See, isn't that great, guys? Isn't that just wonderful? The fact that we're speculating about this is a huge fucking problem.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the very fact this conversation even exists. We spent like the last 10 minutes thinking like, oh, I don't know what's happening in the next episode. What's that going to look like? I don't know what that looks like. What's an expansion? Oh, this came out. I'm worried. Is this what we're getting forever now? And here's the annoying thing. That is not like, I wish I could say, you guys are just unhinged, being worried about this. This is irrational. You're all big dum-dums. No, this is actually very rational. It is logical to go, okay, this patch dropped. This is part of the new release schedule. This is part of their new quarterly update system. This is it forever. This is what every single patch is going to look like forever. And then we can assume that the expansions are also going to, in some way, mirror this as well. Oh, no, right? Yeah, this is a problem. I mean, I don't think ArenaNet can do it now because I actually agree that the expansion probably, I'd say a good chunk of it is, they probably know vaguely where they're going with it, but they probably don't have everything completely ironed out while they finish off that development. I kind of actually agree with Lara on this. I think we could actually potentially see the expansion very late this year or early next year is actually a distinct possibility, kind of looking at the way the schedule's working out with the next release. The fact that, the map is going to be finished at some point alongside the fractal, what's happening next. They say they want to have like about 3 months between updates, kind of points towards the end of the year or early next year, blah, 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 blah. But seriously, like, ArenaNet need to clarify this stuff. They need to get on stream and say, yeah, this is what or a blog post, whatever, this is what a combat update looks like, right? This is what the kind of thing we're adding to the game. This is what a feature is going to look like. Oh yeah, we're adding player housing. Or this is the type of direction we're going to be going in there. Like, oh yeah, this is, look, and I actually, there is no way they don't know about this, by the way. I guarantee you that they knew how long End of Dragons took to play through, right? They had people test it. They probably had an average. They had metrics on how long does the campaign take to play through, right? They will be able to say, okay, yeah, we're looking to have this amount of playtime for an expansion, right? They've got to have metrics on this stuff, and I really think they've got to communicate it, because yes, it's a small vocal minority of players, but those small vocal minority of players are currently obliterating the narrative and the community morale, which is important, even though it isn't that many people. This entire conversation is evidence that ArenaNet need to fix it, right? It can't just be Grouch in his free time doing some Reddit posts and talking in Twitch chat. That's not good enough. They had Double Tap for a while, doing some community management. Double Tap's gone. We need Double Tap 2, Triple Tap.
I think they should take a stance. They should make more clear statements. Like, for sure, they should communicate more. Like, if there's precursor crafting coming, they should tell us 4 years ahead of time. And if World versus World alliances are coming, they should tell us 5 years ahead of time. And then just whenever they're here, they're here. They need to also, whenever Josh Foreman goes on the forums to talk about Super Adventure Box, tell him not to ever do that again. They need to really get on all this stuff, and all our problems will be solved. Because really, like, that's obviously like trolling, but when they've had community managers and people in the past, and like they've tried to like set up and talk about stuff, and we're going to do this, it's gone horribly for them, because people find a way to turn it into something negative, and they attack them, and they're like, oh, fuck you, ArenaNet, you're evil, stop wasting our time with your troll posts, get off of my subreddit. And it's understandable that they don't want to communicate, but they've also said, like, hey, we're going to take a different approach to communication, and we're going to be very open with things now. And I'm Grouch, the game director, and I'm going to tell you about all of our shortcomings and things that are, going right and wrong. And then it just kind of falls back into silence again. And then there's Double Tap, and then there's nothing. And again, this has kind of always been the case. It feels like they do want to take a stance, but then it just doesn't go according to their ideals and exactly how they want it to go. So they're just like, oh, fuck it. Or maybe it's even NCSoft. Maybe NCSoft is saying, do this, it will work. And then it doesn't, and NCSoft doesn't give it any time. They say, pull the plug, fuck it. Fire half the company. It's not working out. So I don't know.
Here's the thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say, I know that the ArenaNet team has like their problems or whatever, and that they're not, they're not as big as Blizzard and Square Enix and this sort of thing. I always felt that So I said this in my video, but I always felt that Living World kind of like over-delivered. Like we got way too much, like so much content in Living World compared to other MMO patches that it probably wasn't sustainable. And so I understand that they've had to make concessions here, but I think they've just made the wrong concessions. Like I think it's okay, you know, as you were saying, Lara, like everything's voice acted. Every time they have the main commander speak, that's like 10 voice actors that are going back in. And it's like, just don't do it then. Make the concession, cut. You don't have to have not everything. I'm just saying you don't have to have everything voice acted. You can pad this out with like non-voice acted story. I know that the precedent is that there is voice acted story, but if they need to do it to give us meatier stories, I think that it's a worthwhile trade-off.
I 100% agree.
Yeah, same thing with like map metas and stuff. Like if they have to put all their time into developing a map meta and then none of that time goes into developing Strike or a Fractal or something, I don't know. They need to like find the right balance here. They haven't found the balance with this patch, but I hope that they do find it like moving forward, because I think they can do it. I think they have the resources to find a good balance of like narrative, instance content and open world content, but they just haven't been able to sort of divvy that up in the right way yet.
I think they backed themselves into a corner on this one. I don't think they can cut the voice acting. There's no way. Can you imagine how brutal the backlash should be? The thing is I think that with the majority of the player base, I think the voice acting and that element of the game's storytelling is probably a huge factor. I think we're kind of skipping over that. Yeah, sure. Would a lot of more veteran players be okay with that? Probably yes, because they don't care so much about the story. But I think a huge part of the demographic would absolutely like hate that. If that happened, there's no way.
The thing, though, this episode had so much voice acted like side optional dialogue. I'm like, just cut that fat, put that money into developing the main story. And then, like, if you've got extra, then sure, do the side story. But this story was already short. We didn't need like extra sort of side dialogue that was fully voice acted. And like, you can make all the instanced missions, like the proper missions, voice acted. But I think there's a lot of like in between story that you could do without that voice acting at all.
Okay, I have a take on that, and I think I would suspect, if there's a lot of voice acted like side stuff, that they either intended to have more story and for whatever reason they had to cut it, so they just repurpose stuff that they were going to use for something else, or it will be more important to do those things going forward, because I don't think they would just waste time voice acting like irrelevant side stuff, especially if they have to fucking do it in like 38 different languages. Because like that's pretty intense to do all of that, and then for it just to be kind of trivial side content that a third of the people are going to do, or even a tenth of the people are going to pay attention to. I don't know. That makes me think that something weird's going on.
Yeah, I want to. Yeah, let's get Lara into this. What do you think?
Actually, like in season 1 and season 2, they didn't voice act the main character. They didn't voice act the commander at all. I liked it the commander's voice acted, and it feels like they're going into a whole arc. You know, the commander PTSD arc. So I feel like it's kind of necessary right now. But honestly, if it leads to them being able to do longer story, I would be down with having the commander not be voice actors. And then you can still follow the other characters talk, but like in season 1 and season 2 it worked pretty well. Like, I didn't really miss it that much when I replayed season 1.
Well,
but yeah.
I think something that we're kind of poking at here, and what I feel like what we're trying to figure out is, where do we think the bottleneck is in the development cycle?
Yeah.
Right? That's what we're getting at here. And I think it's almost like a little dangerous to speculate about this, because I think there's a few things that it could be. Like, for example, I look at the map.
Soft.
Okay, yeah. I would look at the map and I'd go, wow, they clearly don't have a bottleneck with making maps, do they? Because holy shit, you know, they really made that, huh? But then I might look like, oh, okay, maybe they don't have enough encounter designers, or they aren't able to design encounters very well because the meta is perhaps a little bit underwhelming in terms of the spectacle, in terms mechanically, or the way that works. Okay, that's pretty interesting. Like, is the bottleneck in the voice acting? I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. I actually don't know. I'm not sure if we are really in a position to actually comment on this in a constructive or interesting way to an extent, because I think that these things are probably known to ArenaNet, obviously, but I think it's really hard for us as kind of armchair devs to kind of actually see what's going on there, right? And to kind of pick away at it and figure that out. I think only ArenaNet would be able to tell us that, to be honest.
It might even be that it's all because of the bottleneck. Like, I mean, it's very likely, right, that they have a certain, I guess, like, capacity limit. But another thing might be that they just kind of, like, made some slightly awkward decisions. Like, when we're talking about the meta and we're talking about the boss at the end, right? Is that really a bottleneck issue? Or is it that they sort of designed this map with this being the halfway point and then they cut it up sort of awkwardly? You know what I mean? It might be that's generally they've got a really awesome boss already implemented, but they were like, oh shit, we gotta like cut it up. We gotta like have a halfway point somewhere. And that kind of just didn't work out that nice. I don't know. Again, you're completely right, though. We're just speculating at this point.
And this is why I just want to go back to the original topic. You know, because you know what? I really want to convince ArenaNet to do a little bit of community management. They should set these expectations. Please, ArenaNet, just do it. I can't take it anymore. Seriously, I had to argue with Doomers for 10 hours on my first stream. 10 hours, guys. Okay? Do you know how horrible that was? You know, that's what happens. And listen, ArenaNet, I'm just going to be honest with you. I want the Doomers to go to you instead. I want to just play the game and enjoy the stream. I want them all to just complain to you guys instead. So my chat is pristine and full of just happy, joyous peepos, right? Like putting the little cute frogs in there. I want that to happen. I want there to be someone at ArenaNet where people can just vent their rage at. So it's not me, because right now it all just pours on me, and I can't take it anymore, right?
You know how like in the solar system, like the Earth is kind of safe because like meteors all get attracted to like Jupiter. This is like my Twitch chat. Like all the Doomers go to Teapot, so my Twitch chat is actually very happy and positive and just vibing. And people are like, "Yeah, Store's a bit sure. I still like the badge. Yeah, it's fine. I'm having a good time." Yeah, if you ever stop streaming Teapot, I'm like screwed.
Yeah, because then they'll be in your chat. Yeah, they'll be in your chat then. Yeah.
All right. I think I have solved the problem. I think ArenaNet wants a community manager, and they wish that they had one, because they know this is 7 head take. We're beyond 5 and 6. Okay, just be real here. But I don't think they can keep someone employed to do it because the community is so fucking evil and vile. Look at I'll give you an example, all right? So Teapot likes to play the game and he enjoys the game and he makes passive income from the game. And so when people come into his chat to just poison him all day long, and they just sprinkle a little bit into his food while he's eating it and into his drink while he's drinking it, he also has people sprinkling in antidote, and they're curing him and saving him. He has this big guild and this big community. But look at Sneb. Sneb started out as a happy, kind, innocent person. He wanted the best for this game. He even tried to work for ArenaNet. He wanted to work for them in PR and to manage the company. And look where he's fallen. He's the most toxic community member of them all. He's on the floor in his own slime, crawling, talking about how evil the game is and how we're all doomed.
Okay, right.
He's gatekeeping people out of raids.
Hang on.
The real point here is that, seriously, if you had you had even like a loose connection to the game, but it was just a job for you. You're like, I want to get hired. Yeah, I'll take, $50,000 a year in healthcare benefits to go and be a community manager. No problem. I can do this. I have a background in marketing and, dealing with trolls on Instagram and deleting mean comments. But then you get to the Guild Wars 2 community and you're like, holy shit, there's so much of it. I don't think I can stop. Like the only person that they could seriously, like really, that they could probably successfully hire as a community manager to have the skin to deal with it is like low tax from something awful, but he's already dead. Like there's a very limited amount of people that have the tolerance to just deal with evil, vile, shit spewing Redditors to handle like the Guild Wars 2 community.
Okay,
like there's just. I think that's the problem. I don't think they can keep people employed to do it, and they all quit.
Let's reframe this a little bit because I know what you're saying here, but we need to maybe cool it down a touch, right? First, okay, just to be clear, Preston was joking about Sneb there, by the way, to illustrate an ironic point. Okay, like that's what's going on there. Is that basically he's saying that it can be draining on you, and I would certainly say that like existing within the Guild Wars 2 community, it can definitely be pretty draining, right? Because you kind of know that you are going to have some regrettably somewhat negative conversations because, things aren't perfect, right? There are problems with the game, right? And that can be wearing on you. I think it absolutely can. And with regards to what you said about the community manager, I do agree with that. I think that the Guild Wars 2 community, that community manager position is super difficult, right? That actually is a very, very tough job because you're going to have like super hard conversations with people, right? Because the game ultimately has had a bit of a rough time, right, over the last couple of years. Like multiple game directors have come and gone. There have been very regrettable layoffs happening. All this kind of stuff, right? They've had to restructure significantly. It's been rough. It's been rough. For Guild Wars 2. And that's a very difficult environment. That's a scary environment to navigate as a community manager. It's not like World of Warcraft, because World of Warcraft can have the most dog shit, putrid expansion ever, and then Blizzard can wave their magic wand and say, hey guys, here's Dragonflight, and also here's a roadmap for the next year. It's got 3 raids on it, it's got multiple new maps, it's got new dungeons on it, and we're back. Lovely. And then all of a sudden, people forget Shadowlands. People forget about BFA, right? Blah, blah, blah. And you guys know that shit's true, by the way. Like, we love you. We love Dragonflight now. After like the subreddit and the entire WoW community is like, it's over. WoW is dead for like the second half of like all of BFA and like for literally like 2 years of like despair, right? But Blizzard can wave their magic wand and everyone loves them again, right? Guild Wars 2, in some sense, doesn't really have that option. They're still building their magic wand, right? They haven't got the magic wand created just yet. So managing this community is tough because you've really got to get in the trenches, and it's a tough job. I imagine that it would be extremely draining on anyone attempting to do that. And I'm not a community manager, to be clear. Like my position in the Guild Wars 2 community is not a community manager. I'm a streamer, and I get like a trickle, right, of the crap that someone like this would have to actually deal with on a day-to-day basis in attempting to manage this. So to be clear, I just want to, it's intense. But go ahead, Lara. I want to get in here. Let's go. Boom.
I feel like I am living in like magical rainbow pony land or something. Like I feel like I see all this doom. And I'm just sitting here like, I've had a really fun week. I like the patch. I like the content. Right now I'm hunting down like shrine guardians. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure how I have managed to get here. Everyone's always saying like, oh my gosh, Lara Copium. You know, the Copium is pretty nice. Yeah, I've got Pyro Vision from TF2 exactly. Like, I think you're entirely right though. I think a huge part of what happens with this patch. Okay, so I know people disagree with me on this, but I genuinely don't think the patch was bad. I think the patch was light, and that kind of sucks, especially if you haven't, I think if you don't like the strike CMs, for example, the strike CMs were a huge part of the content last year. If you don't do strike CMs, you didn't play that wasn't that great. If you already played Season 1, and you're not interested in playing through that if you're not a big story player. Last year there just wasn't that much content. So I totally understand what people are saying here, and where they're a bit sad that they expect us more. I totally get that. And I think you're entirely right. I think community management is a large part of this. I generally think that the whole, Reddit was basically on fire last week too, because there was no trailer and everyone was being confused. Again, it seemed to be a marketing strategy to release it on the same day. I hope the marketing strategy works. I don't really know. I don't have the metrics on that sort of stuff. But I think a huge part is, again, I generally don't think this patch was bad, but I think just a lot of circumstances kind of came together which have led to Ultimate Doom. Like the community was already kind of on fire last week because everyone's like, where's the trailer? What's even in the patch? What's going on? And then I think the blog post, the roadmap, might not have been written in the best possible way. Like, I know people who thought a mini expansion was coming out this week. I saw
Yeah.
some people being like,
yes.
there's gonna be 2 new maps, 2 new strikes, bam, new combat features, and they were like, wait, that's not this week. I think that if there would have been I think you're entirely right. I think if there had been slightly more clear communication, better community management, I don't think this patch would have been nearly as badly received. Because, like I said, I generally enjoy the patch a lot, coming from my perspective. I think if they just had a couple of things like, like even something like, hey, this patch is gonna end on a fight, but the real fight, that's gonna be next patch. I think just if they would have said something like that, I think that would have made a massive difference just in perception of people. And if they push this a little bit, like they've announced that fractal, right? That fractal is a huge part of my kind of feeling really good about the game right now. We haven't had a fractal CM in like 2 years, right? We only have 3 in the entire game right now. For me, a fractal CM is pretty much just as hype as a raid. Knowing that a fractal CM is very close to being here, makes me like, oh, hell yeah. Content is on the way. There's going to be a second half to the map. I am feeling genuinely good. There's going to be an expansion probably sooner than we ever would have expected. I think a huge part is with how you spin this. And I think 100% you're entirely correct, TeaTime. I think that's just the perception of this patch is what, and the way that it's been sort of framed, where people had, I genuinely think there's a lot of really cool content coming, but people thought it was coming now. I think a lot of people were literally sitting here like, there's going to be a strike, there's going to be this, there's going to be that, and then it turned out none of that is here. Again, I'm really positive about the game. I think I'm really excited for the Fractal CM, expansion, blah, 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 blah. I think all that stuff is coming, but it's not here yet. And if they just would have communicated slightly better, where it's like, yo, we got really cool content coming, we got a cool meta, we got this, we got that, this is what you're getting today. You're not getting the Fractal yet, the strike is not here yet, but it's coming later. If they would have just communicated slightly more effectively, I think that would have been huge. Sort of their strat seems to have been with this patch, like you kind of stay a bit quiet, kind of go like, there's no trailer, like we mentioned it, but that's when you get people imagining all these kind of things. People don't know what's happening, and that leads to the doom. So yes, community management would have prevented a lot of this, because generally I like the patch, but the community management, I think, is the biggest issue. I think that's the thing that has led to this whole situation.
And I think that something that I can work on myself, and that other players like me who don't just play Guild Wars 2 can sort of like manage, is that I think our opinions and our expectations are often shaped by the other games we play as well. And it's always really hard to ignore that. Especially, like, because Destiny just came out with an expansion recently. It was not good, by the way. But like that, it's just it is something to understand that ArenaNet's development team is just like not the size of those ones. But again, as you were saying, I just think there was so much they could have done to help alleviate the chaos with this patch, and they didn't really do anything. I understand we're like talking around in circles now, but that's just, it is what it is. That's all we can say about it, really. It's just that there needs to be more communication. Because I don't really, I don't know that I even mind if this is, like as I said, in isolation, I didn't think the patch was that bad, but it was just the expectations that blew it out of proportion and just made it really difficult to kind of deal with.
Yeah.
This is like peaceful tea time. Like we actually agree with each other.
We're all in the acceptance
Yeah.
phase
Yeah.
now.
We have
You
entered
brought
it.
me in, Teapot.
Yeah.
I've entered acceptance phase.
Yeah, and I do really want to kind of actually say this as maybe a bit of a kind of an ending to the community management topic. Oh man, it's so hard to say this. I mean, without sounding like a massive like shill or a you know like a massive complete Guild Wars 2 apologist here, but I would really encourage everyone to have reasonable expectations for what the game is and what the game isn't. Guild Wars 2 is not a game that is going to release a huge amount of kind of like instance raid style content or even dungeon content. That's not what the game is going to be. Guild Wars 2 is, and to be frank, always has been, maybe with the exception of Heart of Thorns, is a game that releases a lot of story, a lot of open world content, exploration style, and big open world boss style content, alongside some variety packs. Basically, you get your world versus world updates. You have PvP attached to the game. You get the occasional raid and strike and fractal. That's what the game is, right? And you will always be upset with it and unsatisfied if you do not accept that, pretty much. But you don't have to accept it, by the way. The alternative to accepting it is playing another game or playing more than one game at the same time, right? There is always that. For example, look, I'm gonna give you guys a great story. I'm gonna give you an amazing story. I know a whole bunch of people who now main WoW and Final Fantasy, and whenever there's a new strike mission, they come back and play it. Boom, there you go, and they have fun. And they go, you know what? I enjoyed this strike mission, Teapot. I realize that there won't be another one for a while. I will now go back and play World of Warcraft. And you know what? They're happy. They're full of joy. They're having a good experience in Guild Wars 2. That could be you guys. Okay, it could be you. You could be happy too.
I can actually take that a little bit further if you're cool with it.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Guild Wars 2 is a casual MMO with no subscription fee and periodic content of different types. It's not your life.
What?
What?
Yeah.
What?
Fucking let's say that again. It's not your life. Go outside. Go play a
I
different
streamed
game.
this game 14 hours the other day. I think it is my life at this point. I'm happy though. Yo, I gotta say,
You destroyed me. I just want to point this out. You obliterated me, Lara. I admit this. I'm gonna admit defeat. You crushed me. Right? Like
Let's
day
go.
one. Fair enough. I had a
go.
strong performance. Seriously, Lara's been pumping like 12
I rested
hours
the
a
day
day.
before.
Right?
I
Like,
rested the day before. I
you
cheated.
are unhinged. You're like, that is insane. I don't.
You know what? Here's the thing though. I saw this video you posted, people, where you talk about if you want to play this game a lot, you gotta find something to do, is what you were talking about. If you want to play like story content and play the game 70 hours a week, it's not possible. There's not that much story content.
There never
right?
will be. No game has that content.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta find something to sort of bind you to the game, and you can also not do that. You can also go play something else for a bit. That's totally cool. That's something that's super nice about Guild Wars 2. Something that happened to me this week. This might honestly be a part of why I had a very different response than a lot of people in the community dispatch. I got really into World versus World. I've never been into World versus World that much, but they've been doing these patches. They added the weekly. They've added the objective awards and stuff. I was just kind of feeling it. I was like, yo, I want to try some World versus World. I found a build I really liked. And I have been ridiculously addicted to playing World versus World this week. So to me, almost this patch feels like they added a whole new game mode because suddenly I'm playing World versus World like every day. By the way, gotta say, I think ArenaNet has actually been popping off with World versus World recently. I think these have been really good patches they've been adding over there. But I think that's just like I think that's sort of this game is huge. And I think if we gotta sort of accept the fact that this game is not WoW, this game is not Final Fantasy XIV, this game has as far as we can tell at least, a much smaller budget, much less devs pumping out content. Again, I am actually pretty enthusiastic because there's a strike coming, there's an expansion coming, all that sort of stuff. But something that's there's so much stuff in the game. There's so much stuff you might not have done. I know this sounds like a complete deflection from the topic, right? We're talking about the patch, but I genuinely think that sort of the enlightened Guild Wars 2 player, as in the meme format, like an ultimate enlightened Guild Wars 2 player, there's so much stuff left. There's so many more elite specs I want to master. There's so many more speedruns I want to try. There's so many bosses I want to solo. There's a whole game mode I'm discovering for the first time right now. I think that in the end, if you really want to play this game like 70 hours a week, a patch is not going to give you that much. And even if the patch was slightly longer, even if there was slightly more story, even if the meta event would have had a slightly cooler boss fight at the end, it's good to keep your expectations in check. Because even if this patch would have had those things which were kind of, I think we all agree on that we kind of missed, it's not gonna like be able to entertain you for like 70 hours a week. So if you want to play 70 hours a week, that's cool, but yeah, you gotta find something, try a new game mode, try Vault for Vault, I don't know. That seems to be working for me,
think
so
on a personal level, I feel like I don't the size of the content isn't even a personal thing. The reason that I want like the content to be good and marketed well and that sort of thing is because I want more new players to come to the game, because hopefully then more new players leads to more money for ArenaNet, which leads to more content, which means that we have a better gameplay experience. And yeah, that's pretty much all I hope for the game, really, is I just want more new players coming to the game. And as always, like, it's always a good time for new players to jump in, especially now with all the quality of life updates and Living World Season 1. Like, the game is in a pretty good spot overall. But I think if we get some more, if we get some more sort of like underwhelming patches, then like I think that's going to prevent some of those newer players coming in. They're going to watch those streams and see the reception, and then just not going to be interested in joining in, which leads to sort of like a stalemate where maybe the game isn't growing and that we're not getting new content. But I understand, though, at the moment the game is growing. I just want that to continue, and I'm worried about how they might step on their own toes.
Yeah, and to kind of sum up some of these things and maybe clarify a few things about what's being said here. The goal with conversations like this and this type of message that we're giving here, it's not to say, oh, you can't criticize the game, guys. We're saying have a reasonable expectation and kind of understand that no game can keep up with how many hours you can put into it. Like, no game can do it. It's literally impossible, right? With the way that development speed works. And also understand what the game is, what it's selling to you. I think a really apt comparison would be something like this. You wouldn't criticize, or it would be a really weird thing to get mad at League of Legends for not having PvE, like raid bosses in it. It's weird because, well, it's not a PvE game. It's a MOBA, right? It's a 5v5 PvP game. That's what League of Legends is. And yeah, it's technically true that it doesn't have raid bosses, unless I guess you count Baron, right? But it wouldn't really make a lot of sense to make that criticism. In the same way, it's like, if you criticize Guild Wars 2 and say, well, you're not releasing a raid every 3 months. What are you guys doing? Well, ultimately, Guild Wars 2 is a heavily story and open world focused game, right? Particularly the open world stuff. I'd actually point out here that I think it would be a little strange to criticize, say, Final Fantasy or World of Warcraft for not having meta events. Well, that's not really the type of game those are. Like, those two games focus very heavily on, say, kind of a single-player story experience, doing quests and so on, and then instance content, dungeons, and raids. That's kind of the focus of those games. And that's fine, right? It's a different game, right? So it has a different focus. This is what we're trying to communicate here. We're not saying you can't be sad about that. I think you can. You can say, oh, man, I really wish Guild Wars 2 had more raids. I think that's completely, yeah, awesome. We've got the thumbs up. Good, 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 good. Where it goes wrong is where you say, this game has 0 raids. I'm therefore going to continuously complain about it and say that I basically hate the game, but still not change my behavior in any way. Like, I feel like that's just a very unhealthy way to engage with a product. It's like, if you don't like the product, why are you here? you know what I mean?
On that point, I want to say, I feel like a lot of people's expectations of Guild Wars 2 are somewhat justified, because it's not like they've never done raids or like strikes or whatever. And I think for a long time, ArenaNet hasn't quite clarified their stance on what Guild Wars 2 is supposed to be. And I think that confusion kind of leads to the players being confused and getting into the game for maybe the wrong reasons. You know, they might come into the game when the strikes are coming out and the CMs are coming out. And they're like, oh, this is an instance PvE game. And then we just get nothing for a year. And then they're left like Doom. And like even now, you know, people might be like, oh, Guild Wars 2 is a story game. We're excited for the new story. And then with the latest patch, you get like barely any story. And they're like, well, what is this? What we were expecting, you know, this is what Guild Wars 2 was for me.
Look, I actually want to be super clear here as well, because there's something, just give me 1 second. I want to quickly kind of clarify this, because I know that what I just said there was like, oh, if you don't like it, leave. Let me be very clear. I completely understand where doom or sadness comes from here. It comes from hope, right? I want to be clear. I'm actually very sympathetic to this position, because trust me, I've been there, done that. I wore the classic WoW t-shirt, right? Trust me. I understand what's going on here with kind of wanting the game to be something, like desperately wanting the game to be something, and ultimately realizing that it won't be. Right, yeah, I absolutely loved raid content and World vs. World and PvP. Those are the gamers that I was really into in kind of the Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire era. And yeah, it was definitely tough for me, because I was slowly coming to the conclusion that, oh shit, yeah, this isn't going to happen. So I'm not saying, oh, just stop caring. Oh, this is trivial. Absolutely not. This is really difficult. Hell, I had to quit the game for nearly a year in order to essentially reframe my perspective on Guild Wars 2. I'm not going to pretend I flipped the switch. Hell no. I went and played I played the opposite of Guild Wars 2. I played classic WoW. Literally the opposite of Guild Wars, right? Because that was the right thing to do at the time, right? That was the correct thing to do, so I wouldn't be miserable, pretty much.
Yeah.
With regards to like playing Guild Wars 2 and so on. So I completely get this perspective. I know that ultimately Doomers, in some sense, do love the game. They want to play they want to play the game every day. This is why they push for it so much. And, you know, hell, I've been there. And it's because they want the game. They're like, oh man, I love raids. I really want more. This is the game. I want to get into Guild Wars 2 and grind every single day. I want to grind constantly, all that kind of stuff. Right? Like that's where it comes from.
That's where it comes from for me too. Like I love Guild Wars 2. I love the gameplay. I just want even more reasons to play it. And then when they, you know, when the reasons are a little lacking, I feel sad, because I just want to keep playing this game that I love. But I mean, that's not even really on ArenaNet. That's like on me. You know, that's just managing expectations of what I want from the game. But yeah, that's it. I really like the quote, Teapot, the despair comes from hope. I think it's a really good quote, and that is exactly how I feel about Guild Wars 2 at this current moment.
Here's the thing, though. I feel the same in this sense, but my hope is actually being paid off on. Maybe not with this patch, but I'm sitting here like, yo, there's new there's new Fractal CM, which I've wanted for like 2 years, coming within a couple months. There's going to be an expansion cycle with consistent Strike CM releases. Is it going to be as much as WoW? No, it's not. It's only 2 Strike CMs per expansion cycle. That's true. Okay, that's fair. But still, I am darn excited. Hey, I'm getting into World v. World. World v. World is doing really well. So basically, I understand that people are disappointed by this patch. But this patch is not going to knock me into Doomer territory because I felt the story was a bit short and this boss was a bit underwhelming. For me, those things are still coming. So that's why I am like pretty much on the opposite of the Doom right now.
And I
I
think
think it's
they've.
important to see the bigger picture in that sense too.
I have to
Oh,
say
no.
some things that I've been trying to hold off on saying, but I have
Oh,
Unleash.
here we
Unchain,
go.
here we go.
So it started with Bloom saying, you know, people might log in and, you know, see the raid and like people think it's a raid game or whatever. And I don't know if it's a combination of people like not remembering or not having been around or like, you know, shit's happened since then. But I remember this interview with Crystal Reed when Heart of Thorns was coming out at PAX saying like, yeah, we want to do like a raid every few months. Anyone else remember that?
Yeah.
And people like shit.
6
and,
weeks
like,
a year.
I had
you know that.
like,
Yeah.
people from like fucking like D&T, like in other guilds and like other hardcore raiders like, ooh, I want to go play Guild Wars 2. I want to raid.
Right.
World of Warcraft sucks. Blizzard's an awful company. I fucking hate the shit out of Bobby Kotick. Colin Johansson's awesome. I'm gonna come play Guild Wars 2 and I'm gonna raid. And like we had communication from them saying that they were gonna make new raids every few months, and there were gonna be wings and like multiple raids with like this is the first wing of this raid, and like so little of that happened that people just call every raid that's out right now a wing. Because first of all, they don't remember what the original premise ever was, and we got so few of them that like fucking might as well. And you've got 4 that go together. 5 is just like off in its own fucking like little thing with we don't know what's happening with it or how we got there. Who knows how the lore works? And then 6 and 7 are like meta jokes about how people throw money into the Mystic Forge and they're greedy fucking djinn that collect it all. But like in fractal CMs too, it's like you really want more fractal CMs? Like because fractal CMs to me mean that the pugs are going to get even more out of control. There's going to be even more gatekeeping, and instead of 50,000 ESS to get in a tier 4 group, you're going to need 100,000. But that's only because people are insecure because they're bad at the game and they require a heal brand to press the stability button every 5 seconds to carry them. And
Imagine when it's a million
Nike
KP.
said this
Imagine a million kill.
yeah. Nike said this in chat, and I guess everybody also just like ignored it too. But it's the correct answer. It's like if you want content in Guild Wars 2, like I have a perfect example of this that's happening literally right now, and you can all go watch it in real time, and you can be amazed. Okay, so if you want content in Guild Wars 2, get good at the game. That's all the content that you'll ever need. Like it is so insanely difficult, and the trajectory to get there is very undefined. You have to go like talk to the old gurus that have been around. And Vaughn, I think it's his name.
Yes.
That he's come into the game and he's played for like a month and he's fucking soloing Lupicus and he's got Voidwalker already.
Got it the other day.
All this shit. And like he basically he just instantly comes in. He's like, let me find the best player. Oh, Mela, which is wrong. It's me. But like, let me just have Mela tell me how to get good, and I'm gonna grind the game and I'm gonna get fucking good at it. Like when there was nothing to do back in the original game, like me and Nike and a bunch of people, like we soloed dungeons, we got good, we learned every mechanic of every class. And so, you know, whenever raids come out, that's how you clear Veil Guardian in like the 3-hour window that you have to test the content. And that's why there are people that have done 1,000 training raids and have never killed a boss. They think that raiding is running around in a circle for 2 hours, and we'll get it next time, guys. Pack it up. Time to go home. It's if you want content, it's there, but it's hard. It's difficult to achieve the being good at the game, but for real, like that's how you fucking like stop and think. Stop and think. Do runes really work this way? If I put 1 rune in my armor for each of the 6 human gods, am I getting all of those bonuses? If I just put 1 rune in my feet, does that mean that I get the final nightmare rune bonus? Is that how it works? Let me fucking go like do some tests. Let me investigate combat. Let me go like look and read my tooltips and my skills, and let me install Arc DPS so I can see how the first person on Octovine is doing literally 75 times my DPS. But my build was good enough to clear the story. I killed Zaitan with my build. Like, there's a huge fucking gap. And if you're of that mindset, I'm a hardcore player. I have mixed matched green gear, and I killed Zaitan. I'm the commander of the Pact. And there's nothing to do because there's only 2 hours of story in this map. And you're kind of part of the problem because, like, there's a lot of shit you just haven't done and you're complaining about the unknown when you could be, like, if you like the game and your goal is to be, like, really good at it, you could just get good at it. That's a lot of fucking content. But if you want to be a casual, this is a great game to be a casual at. You don't have to play it. You can play once every, few months. Easy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
When are you?
You're not wrong.
When are you doing Fungus Among Us, Preston?
Ooh, sub 1 minute fungus.
I have a record for that. It's
yeah?
6 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, damn.
Is that with some glitches, right? Some,
I was lagging really bad.
Yeah, lagging. Yeah, you were lagging, and yeah. Sometimes you lag straight through the checkpoints into the end, right? I think that happens sometimes.
It's weird how that happens sometimes. Just
Yeah, but I think that I do think that Bloom and yourself, of course, Brazil, brought up some really good points there about like how expectations have changed, and I guess the response to that is games do change. I think that yeah, Guild Wars 2 started out as a PvP game. It did. It started out as a PvP esports game that's got World vs. World. Wasn't going to have a lot of PvE. PvE was like the start, and then the end game was World vs. World and PvP. Then they went, oh, hang on, maybe not sure about that. They added Ascended Gear and then Fractals as like a big part of the end game. Then they said, okay, let's get into raids. Boom. We're going to do raids with HOT. And then PvP and World vs. World kind of, became less of the focus. It's going to be a PvE game. Raids. And they were like, ooh, that's not really working, is it? Then they did Path of Fire, and Path of Fire was kind of a very cinematic. It was like a TV show almost, right? It was, big story focus, big show-stopping set pieces with all these crazy, look, I think the best example of this is stuff in Living World Season 4, particularly the end with the Kralkatorok fight where you're fighting this giant dragon in this massive chasm, right? Yeah, it's really cinematic, right? Then they were like, ooh, hang on, yeah, maybe not. Maybe we're actually going to we're going to do Icebrood Saga instead. But they're like, oh yeah, but what I'm trying to get at is that the game has actually changed a lot. It hasn't really ever had a really long period of like mega consistency. Hell, I mean, they weren't going to add expansions at the beginning of Guild Wars 2, guys, right? Like, let's not forget about that. It was going to be Living World forever. That completely changed. And yeah, I think that you could certainly get the wrong idea, but isn't that kind of part of the previous topic we were talking about? Shouldn't ArenaNet be setting that expectation a little bit better so people know what the game is actually about? If people don't know what the game is about, I think that's understandable. But then ArenaNet should obviously try to correct that, right? So that players understand what the state of play is as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what this feels like? This feels like they have, like you said, they've tried to focus on many things over the years. Focus on PvP, then focus on raids, then focus on story. And right now, it feels like they're trying to find the perfect thing in the middle. But in the process have pissed off very many people. Like, there's the story people, and they're like, oh, but there's not as much story anymore. There's the raids people, and they're getting strike CMs now, but they're like, oh, but it's not as much as before. There's the World 3 World people who are finally getting a little bit of stuff again with the World 3 World war changes, with alliances. But it feels like ArenaNet is currently in its trying to please everybody phase. And if you are someone who likes to play lots of parts of the game, that's kind of cool. But if you are someone that is like a raid main, feels bad. There's not as many raids anymore. If you are a story mode main, if you like doing story, feels kind of bad. The story patch wasn't very large. Maybe this is kind of the core of this whole thing. You know, the trying to please everybody phase.
Well, they've tried to improve this by strike missions are now attached to the story, so that's where you get your raid
Yes,
fix.
that's
They're adding
smart.
difficulty
That's a smart
settings.
move.
I think they are
Yeah.
being smart with this. They've got a team to look at quality of life, and they've got a balanced team now as well. I think they are actually being really smart. I think you're absolutely right, though. I think this is really telling too. I'm sure some of you guys recall there was like an AMA on the ManaWorks subreddit, which was like a lot of ex ArenaNet devs, including Mike O'Brien, of course, and Isaiah Cartwright, and I think someone asked a question. I'll paraphrase. It was something like this. What did you learn from developing Guild Wars 2, and what are you going to, what would you change, basically? And Isaiah Cartwright said, I would not add as many game modes. And yes, I think you're completely correct. Like, Guild Wars 2 has always struggled with this, because they try to maintain a huge amount of game modes. And bear in mind, one of the things that we talk about is that Guild Wars 2 has a lower budget than, say, World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy, right? And they've got huge amounts of game modes going on. Because bear in mind, it's not just as simple as saying PvE, PvP, world versus world. This is an important distinction. It's open world PvE, instanced PvE, and within that, you've got 5-player and 10-player, then PvP, then world versus world. Like, these are all distinct categories that all required to be maintained differently. And because ArenaNet just love pain and suffering, they even do stuff like they balance split for each game mode. So their balance team doesn't just have to balance for one game mode, they have to balance for PvE, PvP, and world versus world separately, right? Yeah, they like pain, right? ArenaNet have a lot to do here. And at the end of the day, look, I will counteract people calling me a Guild Wars 2 shill by saying, I'll put my consumer hat on and say, that's kind of their problem. They did it, so they've got to now handle that in some sense. Yeah. But it's important. I think it's important to understand, right? I'm not saying you have to say, oh, it's okay. They don't produce as much as I think they could, or I think they should, or whatever. You can make that criticism, but I think you should understand what's going on and maybe why there are some of these issues that the developers are encountering. And yes, they did make it worse sometimes. Yes, they did make it worse, by the way, guys. Yeah, someone in the chat said, yes, they did. Yes. Guys, look, I'm going to tell you a really big secret. Giving away Living Story for free was probably a really fucking bad idea. But they did it anyway. Yes, they made mistakes in development. Look, hell, the first paragraph of Grouch's big, the studio update, right, was basically saying, oh yeah, that didn't, there were some problems with this. Like, Living World there were issues with it, like, in terms of development. It was using all of our resources. And ultimately, I think implicit in the business model change, they weren't making enough money from it, right? Because now you're going to buy the expansions more frequently. They're saying, we need to charge you guys a little bit more to deliver what you want, right? They implicitly said this. So yeah, they have acknowledged and have been accountable to some of these potential, I guess you could say, development mishaps along the road, I suppose.
I do genuinely have faith, though. Like, again, I might be the copium person here, but genuinely just just looking at the past couple years, looking at all the quality of life stuff that they've done, looking at them finally putting a focus on world versus world again, actually delivering stuff like Harvest Temple Challenge modes, which is like the thing that the hardcore PvE players have wanted for like years and years and years. I genuinely think that they are trying their absolute best to get to a state where they can, the whole point of the roadmap is to get into a cycle where we don't have have. Right now, we're talking a little about mismatched expectations, but the whole idea of this content cycle is to have like very predictable expansions coming out with very predictable patches. There'll be strikes, there'll be fractals, there will be quality of life stuff coming in. I totally get it. There's still a bunch of stuff that we don't know about. Stuff like combat features, right? That's still a big question mark in this. But I feel like they sort of get that we want this sort of, stability. This sort of like, this is sort of what we can expect. And again, I think that probably is even the thing that has made this patch get received a little bit worse. Because everyone's been sitting here like, oh, this is going to be the quarterly patches from now on. And then people have been a little disappointed by this quarterly patch because it was a bit short. But I think personally, It's fine if there are a couple missteps along the way. And I don't know. I do think that ArenaNet has really got their sights on what the issues are, having read that blog post. And again, there have been a couple mistakes here with like the length of the story, the boss, also the communication leading up to the patch. But I don't know. I'm hopeful for the future. Again, maybe hope leads to doom. That is definitely possible. Although I don't see myself becoming a doomer anytime soon, to be quite honest. But I don't know. I feel like they are sort of right on top of exactly sort of the things we're talking about. Getting into that cycle, getting out that content regularly, making sure that all these game modes, we might not get as much as we used to, like we might not get the raids, and that sucks, okay? If you're a raider, I totally get it. It sucks that we're not getting as much stuff anymore as back then. But I feel like they're trying to get into this like cycle, right? Just put out the content, put out a mini expect, there's the patches, bam, we get the content, and next one, bam, we keep going. So I don't know. I am positive for the future.
I basically, I remain cautiously optimistic. I am excited for the future of the game because I think they really hit their stride with strikes. I think they've really landed on a good formula for them, and that was like we didn't even know really if End of Dragons was going to have strikes because the strikes in Icebrood Saga are so mixed. We're like, are they just going to drop strikes and just not do them? So to see that they did end up doing strikes in End of Dragons and the quality of those strikes is really good. It kind of reaffirmed my hope when they made the Old Lions Court strike for Living World Season 1. That was also really good. I'm like, great. They have like a formula. They've got a consistent formula. And to know that we're going to get more of those, like we're definitely getting more of those in future updates, definitely inspires me with a lot of hope. I hope they can I think they just need to play to their strengths, because they've landed on a good formula for strikes. I think for a long time, they kind of had a good formula for story as well. They kind of missed the mark here with this patch, but I hope that they can like continue that moving forward. And also, I know that we're going to get more balance updates as well. They've been very consistent with that, and you can see in the roadmap we've got another balance patch coming before that next patch anyway. So they've been consistent with those three things, and I hope they let that continue. And hopefully now we'll have fractals and fractal CMs added to that mix, and we start to get consistent fractals, which I think is very exciting. Because now, strikes cover the 10-man content and fractals will cover the 5-man. And I would love for fractals to become, like a really solid, area of content for them moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good thing to say. I have to say I was definitely expecting 2023 to be a little, a little lighter on the content while ArenaNet kind of truly find their feet. And yeah, I'm very much inclined to agree with Lara and Bloom here, for sure. I do think that, it's just going to be a case of like, can they hit their stride, right? And I think there's a reasonable expectation that could happen. I mean, look, don't go too crazy on the hopium, right? If you're worried about being let down, because obviously things can happen, things can potentially go wrong. But yeah, no, I would say, I know we've been kind of going a little bit harder. We've been pretty critical of a few things here, but I think a reasonable person would watch this podcast or listen to this podcast and say that, yeah, like we have some hope. I definitely have confidence in ArenaNet. I do believe that their design vision, a lot of the philosophies they're bringing in now with the new game direction, of course, new game directors coming in, it's a very positive. I think we have seen very positive improvements to a lot of areas of the game over the last kind of like year or so. So I think that's good news. I think there's some good reason to believe that the future has got some brightness in it for Guild Wars 2, shall we say. I think that's probably a good place to kind of wrap things up.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
The game is doomed. Everyone at ArenaNet is quitting and getting fired. There will never be any more content.
They're all moving on to the next side project.
I tried so hard to have like a nice optimistic conclusion. And then you came in and you ruined it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go hook my shark.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's a good place to kind of wrap things up. That was an intense tea time. Oh my god. This was very, very spicy. It was big. But anyway, gamers, final thoughts, final words to kind of wrap up all these topics. Anything that has been unsaid before we close things out here? Yeah, we'll just leap in there and go for it.
Final note: hire a community manager, please, for the love of God. That's all.
It's a good idea.
Lara, do you have any closing thoughts?
Okay. If you were disappointed by this patch, I get it. I totally feel you. Don't lose hope. Okay, don't lose hope. There's a Fractal CM coming. There's a map queue coming. This map might end up being a really epic with the second half. Kanaksai.
I think
Keep
next
hope
patch
alive.
is gonna be a banger. To be honest with you, I actually think it's gonna be a banger. Yeah, sometimes you get bummer patches. Like every game gets bummer patches. For me, this one was a bummer patch, but I think next patch is gonna round it out, and we're gonna have a really solid map, solid meta event, a new awesome Fractal CM. I have hope. I think next patch is gonna be excellent. So that's my prediction. Can't wait to see how that ages.
Big.
I can very nicely package this all up and get us out the door.
Okay.
If the new patch is good, there's going to be a TeaTime about it. And if the new patch is bad, there's going to be a TeaTime about it. So subscribe to MightyTeapot and give him your money. Buy Surfshark VPN. And, everything will be good to go. Everything will be fine.
That's big. Buy the Hardstuck merch as well. Do it.
Yeah, I bought it. It's in my car. I'd put it on.
Hell yeah!
Now. It's been fucking cold.
That's what we like to see.
Take pictures.
But yeah, I guess I would actually very much echo the sentiment from these gamers regarding the community manager. I really think it could make a big difference to the morale in the community, which will directly benefit me because then my streams will be full of joy and happiness instead of having to argue with the chat constantly. Well, actually, who am I kidding? That's going to happen anyway. I'm just going to argue about something different. But anyway, I think this is a good place to round things out. Thank you so much for watching, gamers, and of course, thank you to my wonderful others. You can see them in the chat right now with the ! hosts command, and of course in the YouTube description and below the stream as well. There's basically a whole bunch of areas where you can find these incredible gamers, and we will now give them all a few moments to outroduce themselves and tell everyone how incredibly brilliant they all are. I already know it, but you now need to know it as well. So, let's get into it. Lara, what's going on? Like, do you still have copium left to spare after this?
Absolutely. But again, I'm just like I'm dodging this whole situation because I'm addicted to Worlds versus Worlds right now. That's pretty useful. I hope you enjoyed my cat, by the way. He's recently learned that WASD gets him many pets. So yeah, he made a couple of appearances during the stream. Anyway. My name is Venzi. I like making videos about Go to Stew. I like streaming Go to Stew. I'm a bit of a lore nerd, so I get unreasonably excited. I just get unreasonably excited about like everything. That's my thing. I should be called like unreasonably excited T or something. I think that would be better. Thanks for watching. Drops have been good, by the way. Drops have been pretty awesome.
Hell yeah, let's go. We need that all the time, Like, well, every 3 months, Twitch drops. We're going to be happy about that. I think that, we didn't really talk about it, but I guess as a little side thing, I do think it was good for the game, right? Overall, gets a lot of eyeballs. At 20k viewers, that's respectable for Guild Wars 2, and of course, that could potentially get bigger when you have like a larger expansion. I'm very interested to see how potent drops might end up being with an expansion, for example. That could be very spicy, of course. But anyway, okay, next up, it is the returning champion, the returning gamer. It's been a little while. It is Preston, also known as Brazil. Dungeon Master, in fact, I would say.
Well, Dungeoneer now, because they merged the tokens, and I suddenly had enough to finish that title since I quit salvaging fucking rare gear from Citadel of Flame. Anyways, hi, my name's Preston. I put 12,000 hours into getting good at Guild Wars 2 and soloing Lupicus and dungeons, and then thought, well, shit, if I put half that time into cameras, I could probably take really cool pictures and go outside and fucking have fun with real life and also play Guild Wars 2. And so I did, and so can you. And if you want to see evidence of that, you can follow me on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram and see me still fucking do dungeon speed runs and also take cool pictures. I don't know. So don't be mad at the game. There's other shit, but the game's also good. And sometimes if you got to fly close to the sun and the char helicopters to have a good time, then so be it.
I still don't get this reference. Like,
It's okay.
Brazil, he's occasionally used third-party software.
I wish I hadn't asked this question.
Yeah, I use a program called Arc DPS.
Yeah, Arc DPS. Yeah. DPS me down. Yeah.
And it just lets me see my DPS and that I'm clearly doing more than everyone else. And so,
don't break the TOS.
Yeah.
No, of course not. No one should do that.
And finally, Bloom. He named himself with how much hope he had for all things Guild Wars 2, a bloomer, if you will. He will now be renamed to Doom HD, away from Bloom HD. Despises Guild Wars 2, hates the game. What's going on?
Hi. Yes, I am Bloom. The sun is up behind me. It is burning my back. It is searing it. I have not been taking advantage of Twitch drops because I only make YouTube videos. So if you want to see some Guild Wars 2 videos on YouTube aimed for sort of the semi-casual audience, I literally just dropped a video like 8 hours ago complaining about the patch. So if you want to see more Doom Bloom, then you can head over there. Sometimes I stream on YouTube, but I'm awful at it because I'm bad at multitasking. So that's me. Yes.
Okay. Well, there it is. Be sure to follow all these gamers. Check them all out. The links are being spammed everywhere. If you can't find them, well, I don't know. Like, maybe there's no hope for you. Okay, not just Guild Wars 2.
Skill issue.
But anyway, of course, if you enjoy the TeaTime, make sure to follow the stream. I do TeaTime more or less every week. We have a wide cast of exciting characters to speak about all things Guild Wars 2 and just gaming in general. So be sure to follow and subscribe everywhere. Follow all my social media. Definitely buy all the Hardstuck merch. Okay, all that kind of good stuff. Subscribe to everyone here. Get engaged with all their content. Otherwise, you're going to be missing out. This is a small little taste, little appetizer of what you can find on all of their individual channels. So please do check them out. It's been an incredible show. Really exciting TeaTime, I think. I can't wait to see what everyone thinks about this. So please do let us know in the comments section as well so we can get some good discourse going about some pretty important topics regarding the future of Guild Wars 2. But all good things do come to an end. That will just about wrap things up for us today. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you very much to my incredible, wonderful hosts for joining me today. We will see you all next time. For all my friends,